Hello, everyone. Before we start, let me start with a question. What if you, as a speaker, you feel that your speech doesn't really live in your words? What if it only truly exists in the minds of audience? And most of the times it feels true, right? Our speech, although it is through words, the success comes only when our speech is there living in the minds of audience. Now think about it for a second. Every time you step on the stage, what do? We bring with us something that truly matters to us. It could be an idea, a story, a lesson, or even our truth. But our job as a speaker isn't just to speak it out really loud to people, but the real job of a speaker is to rebuild that idea inside hundreds of other brains that is sitting in front of us as audience. And that would be the true success of a speaker. And when you can rebuild this idea that we have, the spark of truth that we have, a lesson that we have learned, our story, if it can be rebuilt inside our audience's mind, that's the real wonder of speaking. It's not performing as a speaker or speaking or as a speaker, but it's truly the co-creation that we make as a speaker along with our audience. And here's the reality. Too many speakers still believe that their role is to speak and impress, to even look very polished when they are speaking. And at times, what happens is that they tend to have this monologue. But what happens? What does a world class speaker do? They know the secret. The most unforgettable speeches aren't delivered to audience, but they are co-created with the audience. And that's the art we are going to explore today. Because when you and your audience build something together, then that is more powerful than when it is delivered. And when you are able to do this, that you are able to build something with your audience, what really happens is that that is when the audience open up their attention. We all know one of the basic thing that we are not getting right now in this world is the attention of people. And they say we our concentration or attention span is lesser than that of a goldfish. What we are seeing today, the steps of how to get into the audience's mind, number one will open their attention. Number two, they will give you permission to make an impact. Because let's admit it, how many things do they come across day in, day out? The kind of scrolling that happens on Instagram where they are exposed to a lot of data. They say drinking coffee can be giving us more cancer. Today I saw an Instagram post which said if you're drinking milk, then you are prone to cancer. And then there was a picture of a cow and a milkman who is milking the cow and saying cancer. How many things that we come across, and people have shut down their brains and mind to accept anything. So if you as a speaker has to make an impact, you need to get their permission to get that make that impact with them. And the ideas you plant in that particular moment of your speech, they should not just vanish with an applause when we leave the stage. A true speaker should live in the minds of people, in their decisions, their conversations, their behaviors, even in future years into once after we have made that speech. And that will mark the true speaker set apart. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt you co created with your audience? What made you feel included, connected, and seen by your audience people? And that is the stepping space for us today. So now I would like to talk about why audiences want co creation, right? Here's the thing, Audiences don't come to be impressed, they come to be a part of our talk. So they don't want to sit back and consume information just like they're consuming a movie on Netflix or any other Instagram scrolling that they do. They want to feel like they're part of being created, part of something which is being created in the room. And this is just not any philosophy. This is again a neuroscience. What is it? Our brains are wired with something called as mirror neurons. When you see me smile, your brains light up as if you are smiling. When I tell you a story of fear and I show the fear in my body, it automatically replicates in your nervous system. Your nervous system responds as if you're afraid. And in other words, your audience doesn't just hear your words, they start mirroring your state. And that's why presence matters more than those polished words. And that is why connection matters more than the content that you are speaking on the stage. And here is another truth. Even if your audience understands your content, it doesn't really mean they'll remember it. And think about it in our your own life. How many webinars that we attend? How much do we recall? Probably not many. But how many moments where you felt something that you can totally still live by it, even years later? And that's the difference when we hear something or when we feel something. And we should become the speakers who will make them feel along with us. And that is when we live in their minds, even after the speech has already been done. Understanding without connection is like files stored in their brain, but in a wrong folder. They will not be able to access the content that you're giving, the framework that you're giving later on. And then it just gets erased. So, the first job of any speaker is not to impress, it is not even to inform, it is to co create with them in their mind. And that is what we will look at today. The next segment, I want to talk about there is a ladder of audience engagement. Now, how do you step into different ladders to have this audience engagement? Right? If speaking is co creation, then how do you actually measure the depth of audience engagement? And I want to give you a simple model that I call the ladder of audience. Look, ladder you're going steps into audience. Now, if I are going to be the higher of the ladder that you're going to go, the deeper is the impact that you're going to make. Let's walk them. So the first rung, the basic rung, is called the observe rung. Observe rung. At the base of this ladder, your audience is simply sitting and watching you. Their eyes are on you, but their minds are still half their inbox, their to-do list, the movies that they have watched last evening. So their half of their mind is elsewhere, right? And this is where every audience starts. They are very passive. They're just sitting back and listening to you, thinking, okay, let us just see what this person is going to tell. This is where most of the audience starts when you start your speech. Now, let's be honest. How many of you have sat in a keynote, nodding politely, but mentally thinking what is there for lunch? A lot of us, ourselves being on the other side, feel that way, right? So, that is the first rung that you can meet people, which is observe. The second rung, the second step in the ladder is respond. So the next level is first level is sitting and observing. The next level is they start to respond. A laugh for your joke, a nod when they agree to what you say, maybe even an applause for a strong point that you're mentioning. Here in this rung, they are there with you, but they are still one way. You are sending signals, you are speaking, and they're just sending back reactions with a smile, with a nod. So this is the second layer of engagement. Now let's take one step higher, which is the contribute layer. What happens here? Now it gets a little more interesting. Contribution, right? This is when you invite your audience to take part in your keynote. You ask a question, you get them to share their story. It's no longer just about your keynote, it slightly gets into a conversational mode. So that is where their contribution comes in. Let me give you an example. While you do your session, you can say, show me by raising your hand if you've ever had a moment when an audience gave you an unexpected situation in a talk. So you're basically giving them a space to contribute. They will raise their hand, a lot of them would nod, right? So that's exactly the magic of contribution. When they start responding to you. And how do you do it? Asking questions, right? And how do you do it? More on the tools. I'm going to give you one more framework where you will be able to understand which rung your audience is and how to keep moving them across the different rungs in the ladder. More on the tools and frameworks I'm going to come. But now let us understand what are the different levels in the ladder. The fourth one is co create. Now we climb higher. We are talking about co creation. And this is when the audience actually shapes the meaning of your keynote with you. So let's say you introduce a framework, they test it with their examples. You share a metaphor, they offer a better one from their world. It is no longer your speech, it is going to be more of a co creation. And here's a secret that I would like to tell, the co created ideas stick longer because they no more are sitting and observing, but they are co-creating along. And this is where the actual magic starts happening, when you become that speaker who sticks in their mind for longer. And the fifth rung is the last ladder or rung in the ladder, and at the top is transformation. This is when you leave your audience completely changed in their perspectives, in the frameworks that you're going to offer. So they don't just remember your words, they carry new possibilities of what you have just spoken into their actions, their conversations after it, then their lives are going to change. So if you're talking about health, if they are somebody who are going to take the action the next day morning, 6 o'clock, they wake up, they get on their mat, do yoga, and they're going to take that decision constantly every day after your decision, that is where the transformation lies. And we all have to be speakers who transforms people on that level. And that is exactly when a keynote becomes more than just a performance. It becomes a turning point in somebody's life. So let me ask you a question. At which rung do most of your talks still stay? This is something that we all have to sit and think. Are we at observe? Are we at respond? Are we at contribute, co create, or the transformation? Now imagine, what would it mean for your impact if you consistently moved your audiences to rung 4 or rung 5? Thank you, Prem. He says, respond and co create. It's beautiful to be at the level 4, which is co create, or at 5, which is transform. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. How do we climb the ladder using a framework in every talk that we are going to present from now on? And here's how I'm going to bring in my 5 step framework, right? I call it climb, CLIMB, a 5 step framework. I call it climb because our job as a speaker is to help our audience climb the ladder of engagement. Let's get started. So, the first C is all about connect. L is lift. I is inspire. M is mobilize. B is build. So, that is CLIMB. And each step is a rung higher that we are going to take. And together, they create experiences audience will never be able to forget. So now let's move on to the first framework, which is C, which is connect. So connection is all about dazzling your audience. It's about getting to open their minds for us. So this is where our trust builds with the people. So how does it help us to move them from one layer to another? On the ladder of engagement, connection moves people from the first rung, which is observe, to the second rung, which is respond. At first, they're just sitting and watching you, skeptical whether, what is this person going to talk about? They might be distracted as well with a lot of thoughts. And we have even seen a lot of people use their phone when we are talking. So this is all in first level, which is sitting and observing us. When you connect with a story, eye contact and smile, or a vulnerable truth that you're going to talk about yourself as a speaker, this is when their defenses soften, they start leaning in and they nod and then they respond. This is the quick way where you can open them up with their defensiveness, their distraction, and then they're like, okay, let me listen to this speaker. And once you have response, you've earned the right to guide them in the future. So that's like taking their permission, right? What we saw at the initial stages. Now let's quickly look at the science behind all of this. So the human brain is like a prediction machine. When you walk on stage, the audience's brains are like quickly scanning. Am I safe or unsafe? Trust or not trust? So this is what we have seen in the earlier neurosciences, right? Our minds are constantly keeping a check on the situation around safe or unsafe. The connection switches off their threat response and activates the oxytocin, that bonding chemical. So that is exactly when you bond with your audience. It is the same neurochemical. Oxytocin is the same neurochemical that flows when you share a laugh with a friend or comfort a child. So the connection that you can make is actually biology. Now let's look at what are certain tools in which you can create that connection in the first 90 seconds. And first 90 seconds is all it takes to create that trust. If you miss that first 90 seconds, then the audience from observe, they move on to observe, they are more distracted, they keep their defense mechanism up, they don't want to observe things. So the first 90 seconds, how can you create attention with your audience? The first thing is that the eye contact that lands. How many of us as speakers have that blurry vision where we look around? It appears that we are giving an eye contact, but then it is not actually an eye contact. Because sometimes we are afraid as speakers ourselves, we are nervous as speakers ourselves. And it is again neuroscience when we see look at as one person on the stage, and I'm going to look at, let's say, thousands of audience on the stage, staring through you. That is also a feeling that we get, that okay, it's not very safe. So we do not do actual eye contact, we just move around swiftly, through the eye contact. So this will hinder creating trust with your people. So what you'll have to do is look people long enough for them to feel seen. It is a difficult activity to be a speaker on the stage and look at thousands of people and actually make an eye contact, but that's something that we'll have to really, really practice. When I started my public speaking, I was told that you just have to sweep your eyes across the audience. People will think you're seeing them. But today, I stand corrected. We need to give the eye contact that really lands so truthfully that that is when people feel that they are a part of your session and they feel seen as well. So that's tool number one. The second thing which works really like a charm is the vulnerability. The vulnerability that you bring in as a speaker. Share a struggle, not your success story at the start. People should feel eye to eye with you. If you are at the topmost place, they would only look you up And hence you're not able to share a connection, share a bond with them. In order to create a bond with the audience, you need to meet audience the place that they are. And hence, sharing a vulnerable story, sharing a struggle will help them open up to you. Curiosity about them. When you start a speech telling that I am here to teach you this, this, and this, it is not something which can create a connection. Make it clear that this talk is for them. It's not about you who had come with 10 years of experience or 20 years of experience. People will start getting disconnected. Rather, if you make it more about them, what is the value that they can carry you? How, how will they be transformed at the end is something that will make them feel a part of it. So, curiosity about them. And the next one is warmth with wisdom. They may feel you, um, they must feel that they are with you before you follow up through the next. So be more warm on the stage, be a part of the audience and not somebody who's here to share their wisdom. But when you share your wisdom through warmth, that is when you're a part of the audience. So now let's look at how do we demonstrate this. Let's take an example of you being a resilient strategist, right? So let me show you. Imagine you open your talk, you say something like, I'm here today to speak about resilience. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, and it is an important leadership skill. How does that sound? Sound sort of stiff, flat tone, right? So that's too much of data at the start. Now let's see how we can otherwise do it. 2 years ago, I had a moment that nearly broke me apart. A project which once I poured my heart and sweat collapsed overnight. And I still remember sitting in my car afterwards and staring at that steering wheel, and I collapsed completely that night. But then something whispered into myself, I don't think I can bounce back this time. So, what did I share? I shared a moment of vulnerability. And people could see that I was holding that steering wheel, feeling so low, feeling that I would even break. And do you see the difference between the first version and the second version? The first version was all about data, too much of brain. In the second, you responded, you nodded, and most importantly, you felt that pain that I had when my project collapsed. And that's the connection. And this is the tool that is going to make you take from the level one, which is observe, to the next level where they are going to respond. Because now they feel a part. Now they are nodding. Oh, is it? Okay. So if you do not connect, you can't convince them. Connection is like that permission slip that lets your ideas enter their mind. Because in observe, they're just going to sit back and watch you like a Netflix movie, watch you like as if they are scrolling the Instagram. Are we accepting all that we are seeing on Instagram? No, because there's a lot of junk out there. We don't know whether it is right or wrong. We just watch, we don't accept it. So, as a speaker, the first step is to get their permission to penetrate into their mind. And this particular, the first C of your climb framework is something which is going to take you or get the permission from audience to slip into their mind. So, C for connection. Let's move on and look at the next letter, which is L. L for lift. Now, again, what is lift going to do? It is going to take you again one level up, right? So once you've connected with your audience, your job is to raise the energy in the room because attention without energy is again fragile. People may like you, people may have felt connected to you, but they'll drift away if you're not lifting their energy. So, lift is all about taking their emotional state one notch higher so that you're ready to, they are ready to play with you, they are ready to contribute. So, how do we look at moving next level on the ladder of engagement? Lift takes people from the respond to contribute. At first they might be nodding, smiling to all the nice jokes that you're making. That's response. But when you truly lift their energy, they start leaning in. They start answering your questions without missing a heartbeat. They even will start volunteering to answer your questions, because this is where they're no longer passive receivers. They're beginning to join the conversation that they're doing. So now let's quickly move into the science of this. Because we have seen mirror neurons, audience mirrors the state of the speaker. If you're flat, they are flat. If you're alive, they are alive as well. So add to that, you raise your collective energy with laughter, with a lot of breathing exercises that you can do so that you release dopamine, and dopamine sharpens the focus and makes your learning more sticky in their minds. So when you lift, you're literally priming their brains to remember what comes next. Now let's that's about the science. Now let's move on and look at what are certain tools that you can use right away in this framework. First is the voice and pace. You can actually play with your voice so that you can get to keep their attention with you. Because at this stage, they've already opened up, they've made that connection with you. They've already moved from observe to contribute. Now, when you play with your voice, you keep their attention. You raise your voice, you speed up with excitement, or you slow down to make an impact that will live in their minds. See, that's the way that you work with your pace, voice and pace. It's not just only the volume of your voice going up and down, it is also the pace. I can even talk very fast because I want that adrenaline rush from you. And I can slow down and make a point that will stay with you for a long time. Do you see the difference? When I talk faster and when I talk slower. And you have to do all of these combinations during your speech so that you keep the attention of people, because you've already moved your audience from observe to the next level, which is contribution. So, the second tool that I wanted to talk about in your lift framework is humor. Who doesn't like humor, right? A laugh can instantly light up the room. You would love that you love to give a humor and people would love to laugh at it. So that's the entire room lit up. The third thing is a physical reset. A physical reset works brilliantly. You can actually add this from your very next session. Ask them to stand, ask them to stretch, ask them to breathe. When you do a physical activity, that even more lifts your brain. I still remember a TED talk by, I forgot the person. She was talking about charisma myth. So if I'm not wrong, that's the book. The way she had explained charisma through a lot of physical activity. She asked people to stand up. She asked people to look at each other, and then she asked what is the color of the eyeball. So, a lot of physical activities that she had that makes the room even more lift up. You can also ask them to do mini rituals, hand races, claps. All of this could be a part so that you lift the energy of your audience. Simple shifts makes huge impact. Now imagine I say this flatly. Again, let's go back to the resilience example. Resilience means bouncing back when things go wrong. Monotonous, right? Now let's see how I can lift, right? All right, let's try something together. Everyone take a breath. Now exhale. One, let it go. Now, do you feel that shift? Just like that, we would raise the energy in the room. Now, let's bring it to resilience. Think of a moment in your life when everything fell apart, and yet somehow you found an inner strength to stand up again. Raise your hand if you've ever had that moment in your life. And you can pause and look at people as their hands raise and nod with them when they do that. Smile, nod, be with them. And that's not me talking at you, that's lifting people together. And because your stake just changed, the idea of resilience has already landed deeper in them. Do you see the difference of how did we instantly shift? What did we do? We did a quick physical reset. We asked them to breathe in, breathe out. And then we connected that to resilience. We brought them to the concept of resilience. And then we asked them a question. How did it feel for you when, you had to stand up for yourself? That's again people raising their hands. So that is how you instantly lift the energy. So remember this when it comes to L, energy is contagious. If you want your audience to rise, you must lift first. And how do you do it? With the small tools like physical reset, asking them questions, humor, and all of that. Now that is C, L. Now coming to I for inspire. That's the third step in your climb. Inspiration isn't about giving a motivational pep talk. It's about creating resonance, and resonance is very important here. It is the moment when your stories, your metaphors, your ideas touch something inside your audience and they say, yeah, that's me. I see myself in this. And that is inspiration. When people think that, yeah, I totally relate, I see myself. And that is the inspiration that you need to create. Inspiration isn't pushing hope onto people by giving some talks, it is awakening what's already inside them. So that's I for inspiration. On the ladder of engagement, inspire moves people from contribute to co create. And that's where we all want to be. They've started answering your questions at this place, right? Contribute means they're nodding, they're answering, they have leaned in already forward, they're giving inputs, they're sharing their stories. All that contribution is happening. Now, through inspiration, they don't just respond to you, they join you and they shape the meaning of the message with their once lived experience. And that is co creation. I'd like to repeat that again. They shape the meaning of your message. If you're talking about resilience, then they shape the meaning of your message on resilience with their own lived experience. And that is where the co creation comes in. Now, again, going back to the science, when you tell a vivid story, the listener's brain lights up in the same regions as the storyteller's. Storyteller, I mean the speaker. And this is called neural coupling. It means my brain and your brain are firing in synchronization. The parts of my brain what is lit up when I'm telling the story, and the parts of brain which is lit up in the audience are the same. The same regions are lit up. And this is called neural coupling. And now our brains are operating in synchronous way. So adding to that effect of that dopamine and oxytocin that you've already created with your audience in the previous stages of C and L, dopamine keeps people curious and oxytocin makes that warmth connection between them. Together, they create resonance. What is that? It is a shared emotion. And that's why inspirations stick longer than information. And that is when you, as a speaker, will be able to live longer in the minds of people. And that is a true success of a speaker. Not to be forgotten after you leave the room, but to be continuing to stay in the minds of the speaker and create that transformation in them. Now, quickly moving on to how do you inspire? There are three tools. One is stories, the other one is through metaphors, and then the third one is an emotional truth that you can actually be talking about. When I say stories, I'm not talking about polished stories, but very real, vulnerable moments, and the moments that your audience might also have lived. If I'm talking to corporate audience and I'm going to share some other story, it is not going to be relevant to them. So you need to talk those stories which your audience might have already lived through. So those are the stories that I'm talking about. The next one is metaphors. They make this abstract ideas come alive and make it very unforgettable for them. And again, you need to create metaphors in a way that people will understand or people will be able to relate to. So we need to ideally understand our audience and then create our stories and metaphors accordingly. And the third thing is emotional truth. Don't just tell them what happened, make them feel. So don't tell a story, show a story and make them feel it. And if you want to inspire, you need to see themselves in it. They need to see themselves in the story, in the metaphor. So you need to create your stories and metaphors in a way that they start seeing themselves in the stories and metaphors that you are creating. Now let's go back to our resilience example. Um, if you are going to have a flat version, like resilience again means bouncing back from your failure. I had a setback once, but I overcame it. Sounds very flat, right? Now let's look at how do we inspire in this case. Let's say you tell them a story that 2 years ago I sat in the car. You remember that story that I mentioned, holding the steering wheel, staring through it, and I thought I will collapse. And then I had a question. Have you ever felt this? The weight in your chest, that whispered doubt inside you? And yet, in that moment, something shifted. And then you can go and finish the rest of the story. But taking a pause in the story and asking a very relevant question. Have you felt this heaviness in your chest? Have you ever doubted yourself in your life? And that pause that you take, that question that you ask, that nods that happen is the place where connection deepens. And you know that you've shifted something in your audience. So, this is exactly where you make them see themselves in it. So, please remember information informs, but inspiration is the one that transforms. So, inspire your audience so that they'll start living in your message and they start shaping your message. So, the next is M. M for mobilize. That's a fourth step in climb. Mobilize means giving your audience a chance to act in the moment because inspiration without action, again, fades off, right? So, mobilization is when you invite them to practice, reflect, and even apply your idea right there in the room. So, it begins to live in them immediately. So, on the ladder of engagement, mobilize will move people from co create to the next level, which is transform. At co create, they're resonating with you, they're sharing meaning. But in the mobilize, they take ownership, they do something with the idea. And that's the difference of being a nice talk to being a transformational one. So, what is the science? Why does action matter so much? Because of the principle in neuroscience, there's something called as state dependent learning. We remember best when we do something, not when we passively hear it. We need to take action so that we remember the concept. And when people write it down, say it aloud, or apply it in that particular moment, they trigger a deeper encoding in their mind. And that's how the idea sticks, not just for a day, but potentially for the life. So, how do you do it? How do you impart this mobilize? Micro reflections. Give them one sentence prompt and ask them, if you were in this state at your life the next time, how would you react? You can also ask people to pair up in the audience and share. Let them speak the idea to each other. Let them share one action point that they want to create. Physical actions, the third one. Ask them to stand and then gesture and repeat. What is that something that you want them to take action on? Or you can even do some mini challenges like a question that demands they apply the idea in their own lives. Let's say you're talking about, uh, you know, health to corporate audience. Ask them, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, what will you do? Let them utter out aloud and say that I'm going to get on my yoga mat. And there, big or small, the point is that don't just tell them, let them tell it themselves. So again, going back to the resilience example, going about and telling about resilience, let's look at how do we mobilize. Take a moment on your notepad, finish the sentence. The last time I was resilient, when I was, give them time to finish it. Ask them, go ahead and write down just one line. Once the time is done, at that time you pause, you let them write, you look around, you smile and you nod. Once they are done, they've signaled that they have done, they put their pencils or pens back on their notepad. Now tell them that turn around to the person next to you. Share your line. 30 seconds each. Now again, pause. Let the bus arise. After a minute, bring them back. And you can actually feel what must have happened, right? You didn't just hear about resilience, you activated it in their own story. You owned it. And that's all about mobilization. So, inspiration moves hearts, but action rewires the brains. And mobilize your audience into action so that they'll never forget it. Now, the fifth or the final step is called build, climb, B for build. Final, and this particular step builds the, anchoring your message so that it doesn't just inspire or mobilize them in that particular moment, but continue to shape their behavior, their conversations, their decisions long after the talk is over. Even better, you want them to continue to remember you and take action for life. Don't we all want to become that kind of a speaker? Because transformation is not just one time spark. Our job as a speaker is to help them build a structure inside themselves. So, build will help you, will help that particular concept or message that you're talking to be unforgettable. With build, they carry your idea into their next meeting, their next conversations. And the real test of a great talk is not just the applause at the last, but the impact that they carry in their lives. Now, how does this work according to science? Because the principle of spaced repetition in neuroscience really works. We forget most of what we hear within 48 minutes unless it is anchored very deeply. So, the anchors can be a phrase that repeats in their mind, a gesture that recalls the feeling, a ritual that they can actually take home. And ritual is works brilliantly well. That's something that you can actually have it in almost all of your speeches, or a challenge that continues beyond the room. When you give them any of these anchors, right? A phrase or a ritual or a gesture or a challenge, you're helping their brain fire the same neural circuits again and again until it becomes a part of them. You can go ahead and use a mantra or a tagline, a one liner that they can repeat that stays in their mind forever. We all say, right, when we have to make habits, we all have a lot of such lines. Practice makes a man perfect. This has been there, imbibed in us. Every action that we take, it is there. So, likewise, you can create a one liner for your topic, a signature story, an image that they will never forget. a takeaway ritual that you can give them, something simple that they can practice every day, or a challenge. You can say, next 30 days, in order to imbibe resilience in your mind, here's what I tell you: the next 30 days, I want you to commit to this. So, whatever it is, make it simple, make it sticky, make it repeatable. So, this way, they are able to get into the actual way of, imbibing your talk. So, now, how do you demonstrate it? Once again, going back to the resilient story, where you go ahead and share your resilience. How about you build a version with what we just spoke? So you can go ahead and say that resilience is not bouncing back, resilience is building forward. And every time you fall apart, you need to whisper this inside yourself, that this is the time to bounce back. I don't just bounce back, I build forward. Then you can ask people, say it now with me. I just don't bounce back, I build forward. And once they say, you stand there, you pause, you smile at your audience and repeat it together with them and feel that energy in that particular moment. And imagine that happen when you are as a speaker. You say all of that and then they say it back. You can feel that energy, and that's B for build. You just left them with an anchor that will echo beyond that particular room. So let's remember, a great talk doesn't end when you leave the stage. It needs to live on with your audience even afterwards. So that's the journey that all of us can come in together. So I'd like you to remember the ladder the next time and get your journey with your audience, and let them climb that ladder with you with the climb framework. C for connect, L for lift, I for inspired, M for mobilize, and B for build. And this is how you help your audience get to that transformation level. And by that, you become that speaker who who each of your audience carries for the lifetime. And that is the art of turning our listeners into co-creator. And that is when we become totally a world-class speaker. With that, thank you very much. I took 5 extra minutes, but yeah. Any questions?
Thank you, Kavina. It was really wonderful talk. I think Rajvi wants to share. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay,
Shabana. Hi, Raju.
I turned my audience into co-creators, but sometimes because I am down with laryngitis since last Tuesday, and sometimes mm, when I recover, sometimes I need to use a mic. Is it normal when they say can't hear you, and will the mic help? Because
Yes.
now I have due to being a laughter teacher and motivational speaker, I use my voice a
Hmm.
lot. And sometimes when I'm down with once a year I'm down with flu that leads into infection and laryngitis and stuff like that. It's kind of take a toll on me, especially since lost the Mega Laughter Malaysia Laughter Championship by just 1 mark. So it's taken a toll on me. So when I go into Cancer Society for my classes 8 and 29. Now my question is to you: how do how do I get the audience to hear me quickly, and how do I get the audience to hear me correctly, and how do
Hmm.
I market my strategies so that I can get a full
Great.
class? Yeah.
Great. So yes, Rajan, so you partially answered by talking about the microphone yourself. My suggestion is even when you are at the very good voice level without the flu that you were talking about, even then using a mic is really helpful because the hygiene
So
step is that they will have to hear us and hear us
no, so
very clearly.
sometimes they ask, they said they're so sorry to use that word, but there's, even though if it's a small crowd, I prefer to use mic because it's confidence, you know.
Hmm.
So sorry to hear say that when sometimes the boss is lazy to get it. So I'm gonna convince her. No, I've had this condition. I do laughter yoga, and I'm a laughter teacher, and I cannot strain my voice so much. You,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's my condition. I've got respiratory distress, and
Hmm.
I don't want to stress my condition, because if I get stressed, chances are, if I get well, it will come back again. You know. So with the weather hot here in Malaysia, I do a lot of talk shows. Eventually, my um my voice is always like this. He as a laughter therapist, it gets worse when I have a flu, but I'm recovering. I'm just worried that I don't want to. So how do you overcome
You
that?
can start using the voice exercises. So you can use it before and after your speech as well, since you're somebody who uses a lot of voice. Speakers, yeah,
No,
speakers,
so
coaches, they use a lot
so
of their voice.
sometimes they will say, "Oh, you don't need a mic. We can hear you." So
Hmm.
what do I do about that stigmatization?
That is a call again that you can take based on the size of the room and number of people. If it is not going to strain your voice a lot and you can speak without the mic, then you can go ahead and do it.
But
But if
if
you're going to
it's
remove, people are asking you to remove your microphone and
if
you're going
it's
to remove your microphone and use your voice a lot, then I suggest you continue to use your microphone, yet tell them that, I will lower my voice, but still
have a
use
no,
microphone so
I
that it
have a
amplifies.
no, I have to tell them. So I have to that I prevent
Tell
my
them.
further sore throat again. You see?
That's okay. So again, that's being vulnerable with people, right? To tell them
Yeah,
actually what is the reason behind why do you have to
yeah.
use it?
Even on the home front, it's better for us to tell our parents, or you know our parents or our caregivers how we feel, because I'm sharing with you because I went to I went to a seminar last Sunday, and the topic was forgiveness. Forgiveness is like Forgiveness is the key essence to be with uh, key essence of communication. Whether you are in a corporate setting, or whether you're in a home front, or whether you're in any situation. So they said, when you try to explain to someone and they don't understand you, you can do the forgiveness prayer, or you can express to them how they can feel. But they said, this one, the right hand, the, the left hand is mother, the right hand is father. So, and the next to mother, father, it's just uh caregivers,
Mhm.
and behind in your back is is siblings and relatives. So
Nice.
this is the core essence that that means the voice meditation or voice reincarnation is in our DNA, given to us by our ancestors, given to us by our grandparents. So in order to have a good audience, we must also uh, tell our story that is gonna shine and not to bore anyone, but it's gonna shine. So one of the ways to become a to become a audience to a co-creator is to tell the good story, tell about your journey, and then it is fine. So that's all I want to share. And thank you for your tips of the voice. And if I think next Wednesday, I think we will have I'll see how it goes. And next Wednesday I will share my views about the pitch. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would be happy to
So
hear.
Tuesday, sorry. Tuesday. So
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajman. Any other questions or thoughts to share?
I think Darshini wanted to share. I think someone
Am
raised.
I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, Darshini, you are.
Okay. I like the techniques which you had mentioned here in the session. The climb and what was it first one where you were talking about that 5 different ladders.
Yes.
So many a times I feel that okay, audience is connecting with my session.
Hmm.
How do we use this model to demonstrate our introduction part? It's usually the standard format, I come with these many years of experience. So how do we change that to a little more on an impactful one? Or how do we
Sure.
restructure the introduction part?
Sure. So when you give your introduction to your host, you
Huh.
can actually create customized introduction where
Okay.
the introduction can lead up to your topic. Let's say you're talking about
Okay.
resilience. You can share one
Okay.
quick note on not the story, but a
Huh.
transformation that you've done in the resilience. Let's say I've gone through with the deepest of a depression, and you can say this particular depression to coming out within this particular time. So that is a
Okay.
resilience, transformation, not story, but a line about the credibility that you carry
Hmm.
about the topic.
Hmm.
So that way,
Okay.
that'll lead up to the topic that you're speaking, and then you can continue to talk. Or that is something that you can refer to later on
Okay.
and tell that, see, this is the one that was mentioned in the introduction, and that's something that I did. And how did I do it? Through this framework. And then people will want to listen to you more because they have seen you do it. You've been that vulnerable
Hmm.
person
Hmm.
who has
Hmm.
shared the kind of depression that you've went through, and then you've come through on the other side. So now they have more reasons to listen to you and co-create it with you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is one way you can play around with your introduction. If you are a person who would like to add a little more humor, then you can put a punch at the last, and then you take that once the introduction is done. You take that, and then you start building your speech. So that is also one way of playing around with your introduction, which can actually be a part of your speech itself.
Okay. Because majorly I do trainings on communication. So there, how do I connect these dots? Say, for
If you're
example, I
doing
never had
on
an
communication,
instance.
if you are talking about communication and then there's nothing that you would like to share, uh,
Okay.
you can actually think about, you were a part of that Guinness record movement, right? So you can
Yes.
share about it,
Yes.
part
Yes.
of this Guinness record. So talk about how passionate you are about communication there. I was a part of a Guinness record, or you have done something, you have created a Guinness record movement yourself. So these
Okay.
are certain places where you show passion. You can also say that from a person who was lisping, stammering, for example, right? If you ask me, even in my 20s, I was
Okay.
not able to make a sentence in English. I can just spontaneously speak. I'm a person who has to create a sentence in my mind and then speak.
Okay.
From there, now I am transforming communication for corporate leaders. So that's a vulnerable
Yes.
story to hear. And that could be a part of your introduction from a stammerer or a lisper to where I am right now. And that is
Okay.
the journey. And that's the journey people would want to move forward and listen. That
Yes.
is where
Yes.
your people can actually move from observe to the contribute, respond directly. Through your introduction, you can uplift people from one level to another level.
Yes. Okay.
I would say always when you are going to talk, make your introduction part of your speech,
Understood. Okay.
right? We need, as I
Hmm.
mentioned, we need that permission to step into people's mind.
Hmm.
We
Okay.
need permission from them. Otherwise, nobody wants to listen. Why will I listen? Every day I'm hearing a lot of things on Instagram telling me don't sleep. One Instagram is telling sleep more. One is telling don't use ChatGPT. Another one is telling if you don't use ChatGPT, you're losing your mind. Somebody is telling if you're using ChatGPT, you will die of dementia. And I don't know what I'll have to do in life. So what I'm doing right now, when I say what I'm doing, I'm talking about the rest of the people in the globe, which includes me as well as a human. We have all shut down to take anything inside. If you as a speaker has to be on stage and share something, you need permission. And that is when you move people from being an observer to the
Yes.
responder. If you can move from there to there, it means you have their permission to talk. It means you have their permission to share what you have to share. And that can be very easily done through introduction. I hope I
Thank
answered
you.
your question, Darshini.
Yes. Yes. Definitely you did. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I
Thanks for the question.
Premji also wanted to share.
Hello, Premji.
Hi, namaste. Yeah, so beautifully, very succinct, huh? CILIMB.
Thank you.
Helped me a lot because I do some offline and some online also. And I don't know, but my audience, which I want to engage with, I want to like not think of them as strangers, but friends who have not met. So I found that they related to me because some of them relate to me after post talk. Yeah, I
Mm.
want criticism. I want their constructive criticism. I give them trespass. Please criticize because
Nice.
I want to improve.
Yes.
So what they felt was that I was speaking from the heart. I was relating to them my experience, and they felt that was very personal and very like I was inviting them into my private domain and sharing with them things which usually people feel, oh, this is too private, I cannot share with the world. I
Hmm.
am vulnerable. I open up myself to
Nice.
them. So this what you spoke today resonated very well with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Kavina. It was really wonderful session and so many things to learn and also practice. Yeah, thank you for sharing.